2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is October the 18th, 2021. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
And because it's the start of hockey season, Carl, it's obviously ugly sweater t-shirt season as well.
it's obviously ugly sweater t-shirt. It would not be a regular season Fourth Line podcast without some sort of Red Wings paraphernalia.
It's true. I do wear it. You know, I wear this shirt year round.
Yeah, I've noticed.
It's a great shirt.
It doesn't have to be game day. It doesn't have to be anywhere near Christmas.
No, but it's like, it's not the kind of shirt you can wear out because it's one of those giveaways at the games. So it has like some random brand on the back.
Motor City Casino Hotel.
Like I can't wear that out. So I just wear it at home year round. So seasons don't matter at home.
That's true. Especially these last couple of years. It's whatever season you want it to be in your heart.
Exactly. And the only way I can make it through is to just pretend it's Christmas all the time.
You know what? I walked downstairs literally just before we started to record this show to just fill up my water and walked into the kitchen. And like, I don't know why this was the smell that I got because there's some ham soup cooking on the stove downstairs. But I like opened up the pantry because I also decided I was snacky. And I just got like a whiff of some spices. And I had the strongest craving for eggnog I've possibly ever had.
Oh, is it available yet? I'm not a big eggnog guy, so I don't really know.
I think we're at the point, much like mini eggs, that eggnog might be available year round.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, there must be a lot of bad eggnog sent back from the grocery store.
Yeah,
I just can't imagine the demand is there.
Yeah, but I do know that it's in stores, and once we're done the show, I might have to pop out and get some because
you should.
That might have to happen. Well, we had actual hockey this week. I know like last week we recorded in the midst of games, but it was nice to have some games on every single night.
It's a good first week, eh? It's pretty exciting.
It was, yeah.
Lots of stuff going on.
Lots of stuff. I mean, we had a couple suspensions.
On like day 1 and 2, wasn't it?
Well, Landeskog was the second day. Larkin was the third, I think.
Okay, so day 2 and 3.
Yeah, but still, suspensions happening. I mean, we had 3 suspensions, I guess.
3 suspensions?
Yeah, we got a new one today.
Oh, yeah, I know. See, I'm thinking on ice.
Yeah, no, we've got off ice suspensions happening. I mean, we had a little bit of everything this week. So we're going to get into all of those things. But first, I just want to ask you how long it's going to take for you to acknowledge my addition to the background. I always comment on your additions to the background. We're like 3 minutes and 30 seconds into this show, and nothing from you.
I mean, for a long time, I think it was a bit where I'd have something different in my background all the time. And Carl would always point it out. And now Carl's changed his background a little bit. And I'd no longer see his open closet with his Joe Sakic jersey hanging around. Instead, you have an iPad up with a picture of Andrew Ladd.
Yeah. I mean, well, because you've got an Arizona Coyote pictured in your background.
I do.
And so I thought I would join you this week.
And they're line mates. Or they were that night.
And he scored a goal. Much to my surprise, when because I still have those notifications up. So as soon as Mr. Andrew Timothy Ladd scored that goal, and I got that notification, it felt so good.
When was the last time he scored a goal?
2019.
Like on his hockey reference page, it says he scored 1 goal in 2019-20 in that season. So you're probably right.
So it was 1 goal. I couldn't even imagine when it was. I did see somewhere, I think it was 17 months since he last scored.
Was it a nice goal at least?
You know what? I actually didn't even watch it.
I didn't either.
I mean, it had to have been a nice one.
There is like some funky stuff going on in Arizona. Like it's enough to make this team that should not be newsworthy.
I mean, you bring back all the veterans. You've got things going on there. This team, yeah, like you said, shouldn't be newsworthy, but here we are after everything that's happened so far this season, and we're starting with Andrew Ladd.
So you're the Ladd. I'm the Kessel of our fourth line.
Yeah.
And this is our show.
Welcome to the show. Who else was on that line? Do you recall?
Nope, doesn't matter.
I'm just saying, like, if we're going to bring someone in, they need to be able to fill that role for us, right? Like, I mean,
I honestly didn't even look. I was like, I saw those two on the same line, and I was like, Carl and I have to talk about this.
According to Daily Faceoff, they've now been switched from different lines. So now you've got the ever great top line of Phil Kessel, Louis Eriksson, and Nick Schmaltz is apparently what they're rolling out as a top line in Arizona. Things are rough.
Fisher was the centerman for them in game one.
Okay. Well, I look at those lines and I think, what did the Coyotes do to Clayton Keller?
Yeah. This is a scary looking roster. And you know what? The results are there too, because they're 0-2.
I knew that they were bad, but I didn't really think about how those lines would all play out with that roster. It's worse than I thought down there.
It's worse when you see them all in one place, eh?
Yeah,
because I thought the same thing.
Yeah, you just see that forward group and you're a little shiver down your back. All right, let's start with our suspensions. We've got 3 handed out. Both of our captains of our respective teams got suspended this week.
Yeah, Department of Player Safety was pretty busy not doing their jobs.
Could you imagine back in like the 90s, an opening week in which Sakic and Yzerman had gotten suspended for like disciplinary hits?
No, because in the 90s, there were players on these rosters whose only job was to make sure Yzerman and Sakic did not have to make hits like that.
That's very fair.
So it never would have happened. Here's how I think we should talk about these suspensions, okay? I think you should describe the Larkin situation, and I'll describe the Landeskog one.
Okay. I mean, Landeskog had his happen first. You go first.
Okay. So this happened in the neutral zone. Kirby Dach coming up against the boards towards the Avalanche goaltender, and kind of around the red line, he tries to deke around an Avalanche defenseman. And by the way, all this time that he's skating up the boards, Landeskog's cruising across the ice. So he tries to deke around this defenseman. He kind of falls onto his knee. And again, he's right up against the boards. And as he's on his knee, Landeskog puts his shoulder right into kind of between the shoulder blades and pushes him into the boards. And he went like face first into the boards. I don't know if he got hurt on the play. Did he get hurt on the play?
I don't think it's not a long-term, not bad. No.
Okay. So Landeskog boarding, 2-game suspension.
Okay. Now I'd say, I mean, that is very accurate. Now,
do you want to talk about the games though?
I think 2 games is fair, especially for Landeskog. Like, this is not the first time that he's been suspended.
Yeah, he's been in trouble a lot with them.
And so I think, 2 games seems reasonable. It was an unnecessary hit. He was as you so eloquently described, he was already on the ground. He was entirely out of the play. That was entirely reckless. There was no need for it. So yeah, he boarded him. Like, you talk about hitting a defenseless player. The guy is on his knees.
Yeah.
And he did. He went full ragdoll once he hit those boards. Like, the slow motion of his like whole body, just like looking like silly putty as he hits the boards, is not helping Landeskog's cause at all. So
no. And before we move into the Larkin ones, I think this could be a good transition. I noticed this week. When they slow the video down to that super slow motion, the hits look so much worse than they did in real time, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Because you see how their bodies, the receiving player's body bends and hits the boards, and it looks much worse than it does like when the play happens live.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So speaking of which, Dylan Larkin is not in the neutral zone. So this is like right around the hash marks, right side of he was in the D zone, was he not?
He was in the D zone, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the D zone playing against Tampa. Matthew Joseph hits Larkin up against the boards, and like I think a pretty reasonably clean hit. But Larkin, and this is where it stems from. So Larkin, like the way I see it, he was not ready for the hit, and he just like took it really poorly. Because he went like I would describe it, if I were to say it, he gets hit and then he just like starfishes on the ice as if he'd been shot. And then he realizes when he doesn't hear a whistle that I haven't drawn this penalty and I am now upset. And so he gets up and he looks for Joseph, who is still in what we are about to discover is arm's length of Dylan Larkin, who gets up and the first thing he does is just start swinging and just clocks Joseph right in the face. He goes down, scrum ensues. Larkin's riding him to the ground. I mean, I guess he's riding him once he's on the ground. And that is what led to Dylan Larkin getting a 1-game suspension.
I agree with most of that. I do not agree that Matthew Joseph's hit was a reasonably clean hit. He cross-checked him right into the numbers, in my opinion. The Department of Player Safety in their statement said they were racing for the puck. They were not racing for the puck. Larkin was there first. He was a clear winner of that race.
So I'm rewatching it as you give your version. I would say it was I could see how you would think that it was a cross check to the numbers, but I'm going to say that it was a push into the nameplate.
Nameplate numbers? Are you kidding me right now?
I just like, because so you watch it and Larkin kind of like he ducks down to go underneath Joseph, right? As he's going there in, and then Joseph kind of just like pushes him in this weird position into the boards.
It was not, I don't think it was a suspendable hit, especially if he had gotten a penalty called for it, which he actually did after all was said and done somehow. But I think it was still dirty, and it had the potential to be much worse than it was. And you know what? Larkin missed the next game. Like, Larkin's been hurt. He hasn't been practicing. Today was the first day he was back out on the ice.
Didn't he miss the game because he was suspended?
Yeah, but he was hurt before that. He was hurt before that.
Oh, okay. Like, did he like hurt his hand when he punched him in the face? Is that what he was out with?
I don't actually know. Because they didn't say it. Because he clocked him real good, though, eh?
He did.
Like, he got him right in the jaw.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and I think I could have seen a world where he doesn't get suspended for that. The Landeskog one was much clearer, like a definite suspension. This one, I would have, if they hadn't have suspended it.
Well, especially because he got a misconduct, right? They were only halfway through the game at that point. So he ended up missing a half game already.
Right.
But I think like the Department of Player Safety, I think, does not really like the retaliation piece of it.
Yeah.
They brought that up in their statement that like he's just kind of seeking vengeance and revenge.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't like about it.
Well, and I think not only did he miss that game, that was a game that I know you have some feelings on. If he doesn't leave that game, Red Wings likely don't blow that. Right?
Like that, I agree. I think that misconduct had an effect on the outcome of that game.
Absolutely. It was 6-3. Is that what the score was when Tampa started their comeback?
First it was 3-1. And then it was
3-1 when the
6-3.
hit happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And they lost. Detroit lost. You know what, though? Like, the misconduct absolutely had to happen. I think if that misconduct doesn't happen, that game gets so much more out of control. And I'm really not that upset about the 1-game suspension. Like, you have to look at it objectively, and that was a clear sucker punch to an unsuspecting player. You can't do that.
Right.
So I'm not that upset about it. I'm more, I just think the other hit should have been looked at more seriously.
I disagree, but.
And what about the other guy on the Flames who got a fine for headbutting somebody?
Anderson. Yeah, that one was, again, we'll see this throughout the year, right? The NHL's gonna take them where they come, and they'll still hand out their stupid maximum fines of $4.75.
It's just, where's the consistency? Larkin did that too, just with his hand instead of his head.
A hand butt?
So you telling me if I use my head, then that's just a $5,000 fine, but if I use my hand,
yes,
I'm out for a game?
Yeah. And don't you dare use your stick, because then you'll be suspended for weeks. We all know that hands are harder than heads, especially when you have a helmet on it. You're right.
Those gloves are pretty padded, though.
So I forget what game it was I was watching this week. It might have been, I think it was Stars Sens yesterday. And this is, proof that I'm ready for hockey. I watched Stars Sens yesterday. My goodness, this Seattle game is getting out of hand here.
Oh no, that's not good.
I know. Anyways, they were talking about how they're like, someone got slashed on the hands, and the announcer just could not keep talking about how lightly padded these gloves are, so that players are able to like move their hands, like so that they have like the flexibility in their fingers. Like, you're wearing very different hockey gloves than I am, if that's your takeaway.
Yeah. Like, maybe the palms he's talking about, but the outside of the gloves are very thick and hard.
Yeah. So I don't know what his approach to that is, but inaccurate.
Yeah.
There we go. We got a Chris Driedger sighting in Seattle. Philip Grubauer wishes he stayed in Colorado now, I bet.
This is bad for me on multiple levels, because he's also my fantasy goalie.
Is he now? After the 5th goal, we now have a line brawl.
Oh, great.
That's what it took. Like, puck dropped, and there it goes. I don't know who's in the middle of that. I would not be surprised if it wasn't Tanev. That seems likely. Probably.
Seattle's having a bit of a rough go at the start here, hey?
Yeah, have you watched any of their games so far?
A little bit on and off. I'd put it on during intermissions and stuff. I watched the first game.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what you should expect, especially for like the first week of an expansion team. I mean, they've literally never played a regular season game together. Very few of these players have played a regular season game on the same team.
Yeah.
And now you're going out there and you're playing against teams that have been doing it for years, and it's not easy.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because what I've noticed with Seattle is that a lot of the exciting plays that happen are happening because of an individual play, like Jordan Eberle streaking through the neutral zone and creating a scoring chance by himself. It's not really a result of team play yet. They're still trying to figure it out.
Right, exactly. And that's where, watching this game today, you see that, right? Their transition game defensively is abysmal. Like, I don't blame Grubauer for this, although I'd like to blame him a lot for what's happening. But I don't. Like, it's very difficult to play behind a team that hasn't done it.
Well, the amazing thing is, within their division, they're currently sitting in second place.
Yeah, it's the Pacific, so
they're gonna make the playoffs.
Probably. All right,
I think so.
We're gonna put a pin in that, because we're gonna do some overreacting shortly.
Okay.
NHL handed out their 3rd suspension of the year this afternoon to Evander Kane of the San Jose Sharks, a 20 1-game suspension for violation of the COVID-19 league protocols.
So this was not the Department of Player Safety handing out the suspension. This is the league coming down hard on Evander Kane for not just lying about his vaccination status, but falsifying his records.
Yeah. So
that's like super illegal.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, obviously the league has those protocols in place because they think that that's the best approach to be able to keep other players safe. And while the NHL might not care about keeping other players safe on the ice, they very clearly do care about it off the ice.
So yes, you are correct in your statement, but I can't help but side with the league on this one. And like, it's, COVID, everything with COVID is very, optics, like coaches are still wearing masks on the bench. It's all very optics based, in my opinion.
Very much so. Yes.
Right. So as soon as COVID or vaccinations come into it, they know they're under the magnifying glass for that.
Yeah. And they had to give him something, right? Like they couldn't just let him get away with this. But at the same time, I'm with you. Like I agree that this is a very reasonable fine amount of a suspension. And the question that I have in my head is, with everything else that's gone on with Evander Kane this offseason, right? And they mentioned that like there's nothing else like it's not like there's another thing coming down the ice or down the pipeline for him suspension wise. Because I mean, he's been being investigated for many different things right now, and it felt like an easy one for the league to throw the book at a guy for, right? With everything else that's going on with him, I wondered if it was almost anyone else in the league, would it be a 21 game suspension?
I think it's a little longer because it's Evander and there's a lot of, outstanding items with him. I think this is maybe the league a little bit getting to, delay the decision for the San Jose Sharks on what to do with Evander Kane. If they want to make a move, how are they going to do that? This to me seems to be the league being like, okay, you guys, this situation with him is not your fault as a team. So take some more time to figure it out.
Yeah, that definitely, it kicks the can down the road a little bit for the Sharks, right? That they have more time for these other investigations to play out and to see where those are at. And, by Christmas, see where it's all sitting.
What I don't understand about this, and it's all from Evander's perspective. First of all, I have no idea what goes into falsifying a vaccine record. To me, that just sounds like a lot of work. And I feel like if you're like, why would you put that much work into creating something fake? Just go get the shot, first of all.
I don't want to defend Evander Kane, but I'm not going to show this to just anyone. But can I show you exactly what it would take to falsify an Alberta vaccine record right now?
Is it a lot or a little?
This is my vaccine record right now.
Oh, that's like a spreadsheet.
It's yeah. And so it literally right here, it says my name. Here it says the date that I got my vaccine. And pretty easy to falsify that. I think it could, if it was similar to this, it would probably take him approximately 2 minutes in Microsoft Paint to falsify.
But do you think he's sitting down at his laptop and opening Microsoft Paint or Microsoft Word or Excel or whatever it is and creating this thing? He's way overpaying some person who is not a graphic designer to do that.
I mean, I would assume I assume California has a much better system than Alberta does. I would assume, yeah. I think he probably significantly underpaid because he got caught. I don't think he paid that much money for it. He
got caught, man. So that was my first thing. My second thing is, the league's not forcing anybody to go get vaccinated. Sure, there are some consequences put in place if you decide not to get vaccinated, but you can still play hockey with your team throughout the season.
It's like you can't do the extracurriculars with your team.
Which he wasn't going to do anyways. They all hate him.
Right.
So why lie? Like, this to me is just like, he's just doing it for the sake of doing it. Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. There has to be some reason that I'm not seeing here. But like, does this guy not understand that his actions have consequences? Like, how many times do we have to go through this news cycle with him?
Yeah, it does seem like, I mean, obviously, right? The thought process of what he should be doing isn't there. And it's I mean, I don't think at this point in time, do you see Evander Kane? I know earlier this year we said neither of us think he plays for the Sharks again. Do you think he plays at all again?
Not this year. Then maybe next year if he can keep his name out of the news.
So I assume that this ends with him having his contract terminated by the Sharks somehow.
Yeah, I agree.
So then they're off the books. That contract's off the books. Then I think there is a team that will sign him to. Yeah, I mean, can he not get a PTO? The amount of PTOs being handed out by teams around this league, someone will take a chance on him.
He won't need a PTO. If he goes and plays hockey in Europe for the rest of the year, trains in the off season, someone will give him a contract to come back and play next year.
Yeah, very true. So there you go. Next year, Evander Kane will be back. I was going to say, I almost said welcomed back, and that's definitely probably not true for, definitely his Sharks teammates at this point.
So he's suspended 21 games. He's eligible to be back on November 30th, I believe, against the Devils.
Okay.
So that's when the league says he can come back and play. Again, neither of us really think he'll be back there.
No, I do not think so. All right. Where were we at in the show? Okay. We are coming up to, let's take our break here.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk. We're going to talk on the other side. We're going to head to the overreaction corner and talk about kind of what we think. We'll quickly run through some contracts that were handed out this week as well. Three, two, one.
And we're back. And we need a better name for the segment than the overreaction corner. It needs to be some sort of alliteration. I don't know what it is. I just made that up right now. Like, I don't know, like the overreaction obelisk.
I'm surprised you went with alliteration on the O and not the R.
Overreaction rig.
Room.
That's way better. The overreaction room.
The overreaction room. Okay. Let's start overreacting to some contracts then. If we're gonna make a whole room about it, let's at least get some use out of it then, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. First one handed out, Charlie McAvoy, $9.5 million a year for 8 years to stay with the Boston Bruins.
A bit of an overpayment, I think. Like, this is clearly a reaction to the Seth Jones, Zach Werenski. Like, it's in that range, right?
I think I would disagree on that. I think this is
underpayment.
I think this is a fair payment. I think Charlie McAvoy is far and away the best defender on the Bruins. He's a top 10, top 15 defender in the league, and he's 23 years old. This is like, and they're signing this length of a contract at a good time for him.
They're also not in they're not in a bad spot cap wise. Like, they can afford it pretty risk free.
Absolutely. I think for them to be able to, they need to keep him around. He's worth, like, maybe I could look at like a little bit less, but for that term to have him locked up like that, 9.5 seems pretty reasonable to me.
So would you call that reaction an overreaction?
I think you overreacted. I think that's the overreaction we're dealing with here.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. Next up then. Let's go Ryan Pulock, a different New York Islander. I forgot to switch to a new picture during the intermission. 6.15 million a year for 8 years as well to stay on the island.
This is too low, don't you think?
It's too long is what it is. I guess that's
too
why
long, but it's too low for like their top. Well, what would he be, like their top two defenseman on this team?
Yeah. Too
low. He gave in. He shouldn't have given in. He could have got more out of Lou.
Well, Ryan Pulock I don't think he's going to continue being very like at the top two level, but he's now getting paid till he's 36 years old.
Do you think that Ryan Pulock and Adam Pulock are first of all, they couldn't have had two more similar names to be on the same team?
It's true. Like I guess the only way it could have been similar is if it literally was the same.
I was confused when they announced the Ryan Pulock deal because I thought it was already done, but I was obviously thinking of Pulock. But do you think these guys are really, really good defensemen in the league? Like, do you think other teams would pay them what they're making here, or do you think they work within the Islanders system?
I think that they work within the system to an extent, for sure. And I think, and it's hard for us to fully know because we don't see, like, the Islanders just lock all these guys up. We rarely see them go somewhere else and leave, right?
Yeah.
But you see defender after defender go to the island and play better than they have elsewhere, right? So I think they're a part of the system, and it's a system that works. I wouldn't want to leave if I was him.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm looking at some of these comparables for Ryan Pulock, like Colton Parayko, 6.5, Ryan Ellis, 6.25. I guess he's kind of in that range. Torrey Krug, 6.5, Cam Fowler, 6.5. Like, that's not that crazy of a deal.
No.
Good for him.
Now that you mention it, though, this roster not only has Pulock, Pulock, it also has Pajot, Palmieri, Parise, and also signed Pulock.
Someone else likes alliterations, apparently.
And I'm just sad that the person signing those contracts doesn't have. I mean, I guess Lou Lamoriello loves alliteration. That's what we've learned today.
That's what we've learned. There's your episode title for today.
It's true. All right. The big one of the week. I guess let's stick because Pulock got his extension at 6.25. Mattias Ekholm, he got one at 6.15. So another defender. I mean, it's shorter term, right? I think his was 6 years. Let me just double check that.
I think it might even be 4.
It is. You are correct, Nick. It is 4. I think that's a great deal for the Preds.
I agree. I think, honestly, I think this is a great deal for both. Like, this, to me, is kind of, as an outsider looking in with no kind of numbers to reference, like, this seems to me exactly what Ekholm's worth as a player.
Yeah. And it's short-term enough that it's low risk for the Preds, and it gets him paid pretty well until
they get to keep a veteran part of their leadership group around. He's been there for a while. The fans love him. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now for the big deal. The lockout, the holdout is over. Probably, I mean, this was the last restricted free agent we were waiting to sign. Brady Tkachuk gets 8.2 for 7 years to stay with the Ottawa Senators.
It took them a long time to come to this deal.
To exactly the deal that should have been signed.
Yeah. Like, you know what? I think it's a bit of an overpay for Brady Tkachuk, but he's so young that he could grow into this deal and it could look amazing for them.
I guess, like, last year he played at, and I don't have the exact mathed out, but he's like a 25 and 25 forward. But he's 22 years old. He hasn't had a full non-COVID-y. I guess he did have one non-COVID influence season, and he's been consistent, right? He is a 20 plus goal scorer at 22 years of age with that surrounding cast.
Yeah.
Like he's dragging those guys up with him. So I think as the rest get better, right? Like I've been shocking. I mean, granted, I did watch them win a game of actual hockey yesterday, so I'm more impressed with the Senators than I should be. But I think this is going to be a really good deal for both of them.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about the supporting cast. And as they get better, obviously it'll elevate Tkachuk. And as the team as a whole gets better, they become a more attractive location for, trade destinations for UFAs. And if you start landing some of those big names and he starts playing with them, they could elevate him to, like, there's a ton of potential here. But this team's going to be good soon, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even with the fact that they are, somehow winning some games and making improvements in areas, right? Norris has looked really good on that top line. Obviously, and that's without Tkachuk there. So, and I like the point that you make about bringing people in. I mean, keeping players in Ottawa has been a problem for some time. And the fact that they didn't get the 8th year with Tkachuk, and maybe that was what the sticking point was. But they got him past, they took away free agent years, right? UFA years were bought out with this contract. And that's what you need from some of these guys, right? So they've done that with Shabbat. Now they've done it with Tkachuk, and they need to keep that going with these young guys as their entry-level deals are ending.
And they will, because these young guys, the team's going to be winning as their deals start ending. So they'll get Stützle done. They'll get Norris done. They've still got what's the guy's name? Brandstrom sitting in the minors. They're going to be good soon.
Yeah. And and if they are, their draft capital that they have right now, they made up for the Matt Duchene trade with getting all the picks, right? Eric Carlson trade kind of kickstarted that for them. But they've got the pieces that if they wanted to start to pick up some roster pieces, they can easily do that with picks or prospects.
Now, if they really want to elicit an overreaction from Ontarians, they'll go win a first round of the playoffs before the Leafs do.
Could you imagine if Brady Tkachuk wins a playoff round before Austin Matthews?
Oh man, it would be so sweet. It would be so sweet.
All right. Let's get in some overreaction. Some news came out today. Is it an overreaction how, I guess, the media in general is handling the news that Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning is currently scheduled to have surgery again?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Kucherov. I didn't know he got hurt. I don't know what this surgery is for. I'm not have they said how long he's going to be out for even?
No, they haven't said a whole lot. And actually the team has, unless it came out in the very recent future, and by future, I obviously mean past, the team has officially not said a whole lot about him actually having surgery.
An overreaction would be going and trading for Jack Eichel now.
They've got room.
They have room now.
I would overreact to that. If the Tampa Bay Lightning somehow have the pieces to give up to get Jack Eichel, come on.
And then Kucherov's out for the season, comes back for the playoffs.
Okay, look, I'm just gonna look, because they have to do this every year, right? They bring the guy back in the playoffs, and then the next year comes around and they've got to find a way. Is there any money coming off this cap next year? Andre Palat is the only money coming off the cap.
And that's what, 5?
5.3.
5.3.
Braden Point's raise kicks in next year. So that's where 3 of the 5.3 go to.
You'd have to make other moves.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you could.
You absolutely could, looking at their mid-6.
And if it means that you get Jack Eichel on this team, you can package a Eric Chernak and a Alex Killorn or a Ross Colton and Anthony Cirelli and be fine. But that's not happening. I mean, this team doesn't have enough pieces. Like now I'm overreacting to you because this is.
I completely made this up. There's no truth to this. If
there's any team that suddenly found cap space and has some pieces to move, it's the San Jose Sharks, who terminate the contract of Evander Kane and then bring him in.
That's a good move too. And that would be like what is Kane's cap?
Not small.
No, it's a big one. Isn't it like 8 or 9 million?
Yeah, his contract, and it's still got term on it. His contract is currently is he not
so
even
hard
on
to
their
find
cap
on
friendly
this
page?
Yeah, it's on non-roster. 7 million.
Okay.
So they'd still have to move money out. But
they've got 8 million in cap space.
They absolutely would not need to move money out.
No. This may surprise you. The San Jose Sharks are not at the cap. Okay, overreaction. Montreal Canadiens. Let's do this. For these next few, we're going to play like some over-unders in our overreaction, okay? Montreal Canadiens yet to win a game, 0-3. Okay, the team with the most losses so far in the league. Okay, let's say over/under 6 games in a row lost. 6 losses in a row to start the season. Is that an overreaction?
That would be an overreaction.
Because here's what they've done so far. So they started the season, lost 2-1 to the Maple Leafs. Yeah. Not an embarrassing performance.
No.
Then they head to Buffalo and lose 5-1. Then home opener against the Rangers, they lose 3-1. Now here is why I think that this losing streak could end very quickly, because here are the next games that they have. San Jose Sharks. Then they play Carolina. I think that's a loss. Although that's a revenge game. Mark that one. When we pick our Pavel
that will be a good one. Yeah.
When we pick our Pavel Bures later this week, because that's Thursday. Yeah. Remember that one. Red Wings, Kraken, Sharks, Kings, Ducks. They go on the West Coast road trip. I think that they could easily be, by the time October is done, I think they could be sitting at 500 and they're looking okay.
Yeah, they're going to be fine. Like, for them to get to a 6-game losing streak, they would have to lose to the Sharks and or the Red Wings this week.
They would have to lose to both of them.
They'd have to lose to both of them.
Yeah.
So I don't really see that happening. It's a bit of a slow start for the Habs. They've had a ton of turnover and changes on their roster, but I don't think it's going to be happening for much longer.
All right. Let's then go. So we've talked teams that haven't won yet this season. There are also several teams that have not lost yet this season. Which team has the longest winning streak to start the season? The undefeated Buffalo Sabres at 2-0 or the undefeated Columbus Blue Jackets at 2-0?
Who has the longer? What if they both lose their next game? Oh, Columbus is playing Detroit tomorrow.
So they might win that.
They might win that. Buffalo's playing Vancouver, so they might lose that. I'm going to say Columbus has a longer winning streak because Buffalo has Vancouver, then they have Boston, and then they have New Jersey.
And the Jackets have a pretty tough schedule coming up. They've got the Wings, but then Islanders, Canes, Stars, Rangers.
That's a tough go. So they have to beat Detroit.
So you think both of them start to slide pretty quickly?
Yes. The Sabres first against Vancouver.
Okay. Let's then look at, so you mentioned the Seattle Kraken currently sitting second in the Pacific after having 3 points in 3 games, about to be 3 points in 4 games after they finish losing to the Flyers right now.
Yeah.
Oilers at top of that division undefeated. Is there a reason to be concerned when I look down that lineup and I see Vegas at the bottom and Max Pacioretty out for 6 to 8 weeks right now?
Is there a reason to be concerned for Vegas?
Yes.
No. Vegas is in that class of teams where it's like, don't worry about the regular season. Start to worry about the playoffs. They're going to get to the playoffs. So their team is strong enough, even without Pacioretty, to at least get them to the playoffs.
Okay, so you're saying without Patches, everything will be fine
for 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's look then at our scoring leaders. Do you have any guesses on who is currently leading the league in points?
It's going to be someone dumb.
It's actually not. It is a
so
tie.
It's Connor McDavid?
It's a tie. And it is I'm gonna give the leader to the one that's played one less game, and it is Anze Kopitar with 7 points. Steven Stamkos played 3 games. He also has 7 points.
Yeah, Kopitar had like 5 points in his opening game, didn't he?
Yeah.
Crazy. And Stamkos scored like 18 times on the Red Wings. So
correct. That was
play, still deadly.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, Connor McDavid is up there. Alexander Ovechkin, 2 goals opening night with Gretzky on the broadcast.
Pretty good. It's going to be an exciting race, man.
And watching him is like watching Tom Brady playing football right now. Like you watch Brady playing, you're like, he's just going for records. Yeah. That's all he's doing. And it also happens to win football games. So like he has no interest. He's only developing the run game so that he can throw a bunch. Ovechkin's out there only drawing penalties so he can stand in his spot on the power play.
Just fire away.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one to watch.
All right. Let's play then a little bit of, I'm going to try to pick some players that are at the similar points. I want you to pick who ends up with more points or goals at the end of this season. Okay. Who ends up with more? So currently at 5 points is Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin.
Who ends up with more points?
Yes.
Connor McDavid.
They currently both have 3 goals. Who ends up with more goals?
Connor McDavid. Did you hear, by the way, on Hockey Night in Canada Saturday? I can't remember who said it. They said Connor McDavid would be good for 60 goals and like 160 points.
I could see that.
That's a lot. I think my brain has to be rewired again for the full season because I heard that and I was like, that's a lot of goals for like 60 games.
Right. A goal a game. But I mean, he could easily score a goal a game.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay,
then. Next up. And I said that I would do it with equal points, but right now, Tyler Bertuzzi has 5. Nazem Kadri has 4. Who ends up with more?
Bertuzzi.
No.
Yeah, he's in a more favorable spot in the lineup.
I mean, literally when he's not suspended, Kadri is playing on the top line with other non-suspended player, Gabe Landeskog. Because the normal center on that line has COVID. The Avalanche are in a great spot right now is all I'm saying.
So where's Kadri going to get his points from then?
From setting up like Rantanen and Landeskog.
The one with COVID and the ones who's suspended.
No, McKinnon has COVID.
Oh, McKinnon has COVID.
That's why Kadri's on the line with them.
Oh, that's why Kadri's on the line with them.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to last very long either.
I mean,
I guess McKinnon has to sit out like 14 days or something, right?
McKinnon is not, I think at this point, because he just needs a negative test, but he can't get one of those because he's still testing positive. So he's not going on this 3-game road trip with the Avalanche this week.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, I still say Bertuzzi.
I think,
although he's going to miss like 9 games this year.
That's what I was going to say. He's going to miss like 10% of the season.
Yeah, I'm going Kadri.
All right. Glad we could sort that out. let's see, who else do we got here? We got some interesting. All right, let's go with some weird ones. The aforementioned fight started, and it actually wasn't him in this thing, aka game. Brandon Tanev of the Seattle Kraken has 3 goals.
Yeah.
Chris Tierney of the Ottawa Senators also has 3 goals.
Chris Tierney. I just like him more.
That's fair.
Seems like a nice guy.
I think Brandon Tanev's going to have more power play opportunity than Chris Tierney will.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with him.
Okay.
But ahead of both of them would be, other players with 3 goals, Chris Kreider, Sam Bennett. They will both finish with more.
Sam Bennett for sure.
Yeah. I'm all in on Sam Bennett now. Now that he's out of Calgary, I'm all in.
Now that he's on an actually good team.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a turn then to the goaltenders. We've got, obviously there's undefeated teams. There's goaltenders that also finish undefeated and have been so far. Who finishes with more wins? Current Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Jack Campbell or former Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Frederik Andersen? Both 2-0.
Jack Campbell.
I think the Leafs will probably win more games than the Hurricanes, which helps. And they currently have a college backup playing for the Leafs.
I just think the net in Carolina is going to be split a lot more than the Leafs is. Like, I think Jack Campbell's just going to be their starter for most of the year. He's going to get more games than Mrazek.
Well, Mrazek played half a game and got hurt, and now he's gone. So, which is
Anderson's move normally.
Right. So now they've got Michael Hutchinson called up on an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I did not realize that was the case. If you play a player short, which they signed a pro tryout for this college guy from University of Toronto. So he backed up Campbell for a night. So they didn't have to pay him a proper amount. And technically that means they played a player short. If you play a player short, then you can call up someone on an emergency situation, and that doesn't count against the cap. So that's how they now have a free salary capped Michael Hutchinson backing up Jack Campbell.
Man. And what's Michael Hutchinson's AAV?
If he were to actually be paid, it would be, it's $725, but they can't fit that under the cap right now. So
we should have t-shirts made up that are just say $725 over the cap.
But I like that there's these loopholes exist. They're there. And I know some teams were critical. A lot of people were critical of Tampa last year. I saw people critical of the Leafs right now, but use them.
100%. And Kyle Dubas is one of the best at navigating those things.
Yeah. All right. So we've got that on the one end. On the other end, who ends up with the better season? And I'll let you have. Oh my goodness! I just saw what Carter Hutton's goals against or save percentage was. My goodness! Do you want to guess what the Carter Hutton, who is now, if you have forgotten, in Arizona, what save percentage just made me shiver?
723.
692.
It's off by 31.
That is awful. He has an 804 goals against.
The team's so bad.
Yeah. And yet, Marc-Andre Fleury, a 706 goals against.
Yeah. He's not having a good start.
No, he is not. But if you look at the 2 goalies that have led in the most goals so far this season, it is Andrei Vasilevskiy and Ilya Sorokin.
Okay.
I feel like an idiot asking you which one of those has the better season.
It's going to be Vasilevskiy.
What? No.
It's pretty interesting that he's so high up that list, though, now to start the season.
Absolutely.
But again, like we said about Vegas, like I said about Vegas, Tampa's in that class. Don't worry about the regular season. Just get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we've been tonight is 1 week into the season. This Seattle game looked like we were going to get our first of them, but we have not had a shutout yet this year.
No one?
Not a single shutout in the NHL. Do you have any predictions on who gets the first shutout of the season?
Oh, who's going to get the first shutout of the season? Let's see here. I'm going to say, you know what I'm going to say? No, I'm not going to say that anymore.
Okay, tell us who you were going to say.
I was going to say Seattle tomorrow. And then I thought, no, Grubauer played tonight too. So whoever they play tomorrow is not going to be good.
Dreger, because Dreger is playing half of this game. So do you go with one of them is going to be playing half a game on a back-to-back? So
yeah, no, I'm not saying Seattle. I'm going to say Boston on Wednesday.
With Ullmark in net likely.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with my first. I mean, if we're looking at upcoming schedules, I would say, I mean, he's given up a bunch of goals so far, but I would probably say Sorokin tomorrow against Chicago. And if we're going further out, I'll go, my goodness, Jacob Markstrom on Thursday against the Red Wings.
Cool. Can't wait.
Or Mike Smith against the Coyotes there. That one actually seems more plausible.
Mike Smith against the Coyotes?
Yeah. You think
so many
you think Louis Eriksson and the Fighting Kessels are going to be able to crack the code of Mike Smith?
Fighting Kessels. No, I don't think they will, but that's not because Mike Smith's a good goalie.
That's fair. All right. Let's pick. We started this process. It's time to pick our game-winning goal, Pavel Bure game-playing things. We're going to pick our must-watch game of the week. We call it the Pavel Bures. We pick those. You head to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast and tell us who you think is going to score the game-winning goal. Today's game was the aforementioned Seattle-Philadelphia game. The current game-winning goal has been scored by Travis Konechny. We'll see if that stands. And if it does, you get a point. And here is the news. We talked last week that we were giving out big prizes to the grand champion. It's official. If you are crowned the grand champion of each of these, so we said what? We're going to Christmas with this first round. Christmas break. You know what's going to be a great Christmas prize to our grand champion? We're going to be sending you whatever NHL jersey of your choice. So we'll reach out to you. You tell us who you want, what team, what name and number you want on the back, and it is heading out your way to whoever has the most points. We do random draws for like pucks and prizes and hockey cards and whatever we find around the studio. But that jerseys to the grand champions. So we're handing out 3 jerseys this year is what that means. Unless
you want a Boston jersey, because we're not spending our money on Boston jerseys.
No. You know what? I'm going to surprise you on something. All Boston Bruins fans have turned off this show. I can safely say not a single Boston Bruins fan is likely. I mean, if there is one right now, I want you to open your Twitter app, go to type in at Fourth Line Podcast with the number 4, and just send us a tweet and say, I am a Boston Bruins fan and I am listening right now. And if you're doing that, I'll just give you a high sticking point just for that. Okay. And I'm going to fact check you.
Yeah. You have to be a real fan.
Like I'm not going to just go and be like, oh yeah, at Nick Sagan 18 said that he's won and it's all Red Wings stuff on his account. So, but do that. If you're still, especially this late in the show. All right, let's go. Tomorrow.
There's one game that is the game. Florida, Tampa,
you bet.
Okay.
Wednesday, October 20th.
Oof.
I mean, you've predicted the first shutout.
I did, but the other game's going to be more interesting.
Seattle, Vegas is the game of the day on Wednesday.
Whoa. St. Louis.
Sorry, St. Louis. STL.
I can see how you would make that.
STL looks like Seattle in my head.
I agree.
The Blues and the Knights. There we go. Clear. We've already slated in the Kotkaniemi Bowl on Thursday. So Carolina, Montreal, Thursday, which brings us to Friday. I know we've already got one Vegas game, but the battle for the top of the Pacific seems like the game to watch.
Yeah, we should go there for sure.
And then we've got our Saturday giant slate of games.
Saturday's always the big one. Who do we got here? Colorado, Tampa would be good.
That would be, I mean, that's where my eye went as well.
Probably the best one.
Right. Colorado, Tampa it is.
Yeah.
Sunday. We've got, I mean, I don't want to put Vegas in for the third time this week.
Then don't. Let's do Nashville, Minnesota.
Wait. I mean, the Avalanche are in on Saturday. Why don't we put your Red Wings in on Sunday?
Okay. That's the game I'm going to be watching anyways. Nick
and both people who are going to tune in, who are listeners of this show, we watching Chicago, Detroit on Sunday. Let's give the folks a Monday game because we got a big slate of games on Monday. And I think that they should watch. I mean, we literally threw the gauntlet down of Jack Campbell versus Freddie Anderson. I think that we will watch Jack Campbell versus Freddie Anderson. I think it's going to go to a shootout. There's going to be so many players used that Jack Campbell will literally have to go against Freddie Anderson for the win of the game.
That's the game. Let's do it.
All right. So there you go. So quick little review for those of you, as I know, Matt, the namer of the high sticking game, former co-host of Reasons Are Several, now host of From a Certain Point Askew and our liner notes. He likes to just send them in all at once, and you can do that. And I'll try to remember to go back and look for them. If you DM them to me or like just send me the tweet, it's even easier for me to remember them. Tuesday, Florida, Tampa. Wednesday, St. Louis, Don't Call Me Seattle Blues versus the Vegas, Don't Call Me Silver Knights. Carolina versus Montreal on Thursday, Edmonton, Vegas on Friday. Colorado, Tampa Saturday. Detroit, Chicago Sunday, and Toronto, Carolina on Monday. So those are the games. You can head on to @Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter, mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com. If you want to email us your picks, you can send us those. You can also head to thefourthlinepodcast.com where you can get more information about the show. We'll be back next week like we are every Monday, unless we're not, like last week. But we'll be here every Monday through the entire season. We'll be back. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the games.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Lou Lamoriello loves alliterations, and Nick needs to know if he'll never take vacations.